Thank you very much to members of the media for joining us today. Today is the third day of the national lockdown. We have decided to do this media briefing as the Gauteng Provincial Government that have occurred in the last 3 days, in the first 3 days of the national lockdown, but also to prepare for the week ahead. We will share with you today some of the work we are continuing to do and how we are improving in the area of health interventions, particularly in tracing those who have had contacts with fellow citizens or tourists. Very important area of our work, and we have improved a lot in that regard. Dr. Masuku will give a detailed report. We have been worried about the number of contacts that were not traceable. We have increased significantly in tracking down work our tracers. We have trained now over 4,000 community healthcare workers who are a very important part of the tracing teams that have been deployed on the ground. We have also increasingly used technology effectively, and MEC Masuku will say a bit more about this, in helping us to track down people who may further put others at risk, including where they are located in the different areas of our province. We will also brief you, in addition to the work we are doing on health, we will brief you about preparations for the payment of social grants this coming week. It is a matter of keen public interest, but it is also a matter of concern to us. We have been doing preparations for the whole week. The acting MEC for Social Development, MEC Panyaza Lesufi, will do a briefing on how ready are we for that important work. And thirdly, we will share with you the side of law enforcement. We started on the first day with some significant difficulties, especially when it comes to the numbers that turned up at shopping centers where people were queuing to buy food. We have managed that matter in a particular way. The Executive Council in Gauteng was out throughout the province yesterday to help manage and minimize the risk when we continue to see that there are more people who are turning up to buy food at the shopping centers. The MEC for Community Safety will do some briefing on what we have done, what we have put in place to manage, because the shops are open for selling food, and it was month end from Friday and Saturday. An extraordinary number of people turned up at the shops to buy food. We had to do something to intervene in that regard. The Provincial Commissioner will just deal with the issue of the deployment of the police and the supportive team from the South African National Defence Force, and what they are doing to ensure that there is the lockdown is felt and can be enforced everywhere. I would like to start by saying that as we do this media briefing, we would like to convey our gratitude to the religious sector. The faith-based community in our province has really done a lot to ensure that the lockdown is effective. Today's Sunday, including live streaming of services and sermons. And I want to commend the faith-based leaders. We met with them. They made tremendous commitment to say that they will be counted in. And I want to say to them today, we appreciate the extent to which you have worked very hard to ensure that you cooperate with us to enforce the lockdown. There may be one or two areas where there may have been a church or so that was found not to be complying, and that communities, the good things that communities call on, they alert the police, they report these issues. But across Gauteng today, the faith-based sector, the religious community has helped us to enforce the lockdown. There are other sectors that have also played a very important role in observing the lockdown. In general, the organized taxi industry worked with us very well. We know that they have raised new issues that are being attended to by the National Minister of Transport. Minister Fikile Mbalula is dealing with those issues. But the taxi industry worked with us very well in Gauteng during the first, especially over the first 2 days of the lockdown. They worked with us very well. There are few instances where the regulations were not observed. The taxi industry, the main issue they've been raising is about the sustainability of their operations in accordance with the regulations. And this is a matter that the Minister of Transport is dealing with. We will not be able to deal with this at a provincial level. Over the past 2.5 days of the national lockdown, so if you ask the question, what has been the greatest area of risk or greatest area of difficulty? The shopping centers in our townships and the shopping malls, even in the suburbs. That is where crowding has happened. Where, as I've said, we have had extraordinary numbers of people turning up there. But from the first day of the lockdown, from Friday, the Executive Council members, that is the MECs and myself in Gauteng, have been working very closely with various managers or owners of the shopping malls. And by yesterday, I think we were beginning to find a common formula to make sure, firstly, that there is social distancing. One thing we can't do is that when people are coming to buy food and they don't have adequate supplies, the shops cannot be closed. So that's one thing we have made it clear. So I want to say to our people in various communities, there's no need to panic. The shops will not be closed. Not in the course of the day, because they will close down at the normal time that they are supposed to be closing. So there's no need to panic. But we understand that a large number of working people, working class people, who get paid their wages and their salaries at the end of the month, have an opportunity to do shopping at the end of the month. We understand that, but we want to ensure that even with that, we work with the shopping malls, we work with the various retailers to put in place measures to enforce social distance. I can share with you Yesterday, I went to different shopping centers. Talk to the shop manager or the center managers to put in place measures. I went to a number of areas. I went to Olivenhoutbosch, I went to Tembisa, I went to Soweto, I went to Diepsloot. In many of these areas, there was a big problem on Friday. No social distance was enforced. It was not enforceable. But we began to see by the end of the first day, through the work we were doing with the South African Police Service and the managers of the shops, yesterday we drew in the patrollers and the MEC for community safety. We'll talk about that, to ensure that where people are shopping, there are some measures to put in place social distance. If you ask me, in the course of today, we also checked, we are improving quite a lot. In some areas, people are using chairs to separate, create distance between them. In other areas, they are using trolleys. I've also been to a shopping mall where they are using parking bays. As people are queuing, they are using parking bays to create social distance, to create space. It's not easy, but we, as the leadership of the provincial government in Gauteng, we couldn't sit back ourselves and just lock ourselves in our homes when the big problem out there was that there are more and more people on the queues, and there's no leadership to help manage that situation. The situation has improved quite a lot, and we're hoping that these measures we have now put in place will apply across the board, because the shops will not be closed, that the managers of these shops and the owners of these shops will ensure that these measures we have been putting in place over the last 2 days, gaining from experience of the first day, those measures will now be put. In some areas, people were queuing in different places where there's fencing. The fencing was put in place to ensure that. So this issue of large numbers of people turning up at the shops has been an area of great risk for us and an area of great concern over the last 2.5 days. And what I am reporting to you now is that we had to ensure that members of the Executive Council go to the different areas in the province to ensure these measures are put in place. So where you may have seen an MEC at a shopping mall, what they were doing there is to ensure, firstly, talk to the shop manager, and secondly, ensure that there are people who are managing the queues to ensure there's some social distance or physical distance between those who are queuing. The taxi industry or the public transport system itself, in the week before the lockdown, this has been a matter of an area of great concern for us. But the public transport system, many areas of it, that shut down. The lockdown of the trains helped a great deal. The introduction of measures to limit the number of taxis that would be going up and down helped a great deal in reducing the number of people who would be going up and down. But we still noticed, MEC, that there were lots of taxis themselves in every township now that were moving people to the malls. And that's not allowed. That's not allowed. because the public transport system should only be ferrying people who are essential services workers. So by yesterday, the police were intervening, and they are going to continue to do so, to ensure that you don't have the operation of the public transport system that endangers or increases the risk of infection in the various locales. So what are we looking at this coming week? Greater effort to ensure we track down all those who may have had contacts with people who have tested positive. That's the second thing. We are going to increase the number of testing sites. We are ramping up testing. MEC Masuku will indicate precisely with how many new testing sites we will have in Gauteng province. As we have more people who have been exposed, we are ramping up the number of testing sites. And thirdly, we are using technology now. Where we have had difficulties with tracing people who were contacts, some of the contacts did not give their addresses, they didn't give all their details. We are using technology now, and it is proving very successful. And the MEC will give us details of the success rate in terms of tracing. Are we ready in terms of the payment of the social grants? I am confident as the Premier that the plan that will be announced by MEC Lesufi now has been fine-tuned and fine-tuned and fine-tuned. We should see a much smoother process. We are worried, we must tell you, especially the elderly people are people who are at great risk. We are putting in place all the measures, both social development and health, are putting in place extraordinary measures, as well as the policing side, to ensure that in these areas where the social grants are going to be paid, we're not going to have chaos in these areas. Plans are there, they have to be enforced. And on this note, I would like to give Dr. Masuku to just take us in some detail about where we are on the health front, after which he will be followed by MEC Lesufi, and then we will go to the community safety team and the police on enforcement.
Good day, everybody. I'm just going to cover a few aspects. I think many of the aspects the Premier have actually covered them on the introductory part of the brief. One thing that we are here to say is also to confirm that we still remain the province with the highest number of cases of people who have tested positive with COVID-19. As the figure states now, we are on 500. In the next 8 hours, because the minister have not announced the new figures. We also need to indicate that we are having a serious backlog on the test results, particularly from the private laboratories. But slowly we are catching up so that we can be able to be almost up to date with all the tests that have been done throughout the country and maybe with the province. The other important thing that we want to say is that we only have 15 patients in hospitals, 6 in the public hospitals and 9 in private. And these are patients that are having mild symptoms that don't require, 15, 15 admitted patients, and 6 in public, 9 in private, and we only have 1 patient in ICU. It's important to indicate that we had patients that were almost 5 in ICU, and now we're only left with 1, and who's also, by the look of things from the report from clinicians, she is improving and she might be out of there in due course. It's also important that we paid a visit to the clinicians who are treating the patients, just to get a sense in terms of the treatments that they've been instituting, and also to see how we can align ourselves as a country and also as a province. The clinicians have been using quite a number of modalities that have been reported in the World Health Organization, and we are also part of bigger trials that are there, which are looking at different treatment modalities. And our scientists are part, and clinicians are part of those trials. The most significant one, which is a big one, is a solidarity trial, which is looking at the 5 different models that have been used throughout the world, and we are just looking at the efficacy of each going forward. The important aspect again about the patients and infections is that we've got 6 healthcare workers who have been found to be positive with COVID-19, and with the help of occupational health specialists in the department and in different facilities, we are tracing them and looking forward. They are well, and their contacts are also being traced, and these 6 healthcare workers are not having any serious symptoms, except that they are on isolation now, and we are looking at their situation on a daily basis. This is a worry about healthcare workers, so it's a matter that we are going to continuously report on and trace and make sure that we track the progress and the number of health workers who are found to be. In this line, it's important to mention that our efforts of building up our stocks in terms of PPE, the personal protective equipment, your masks, your gloves, your sanitizers, it's still continuing, and we are ramping up, increasing the stocks and making sure that we don't run short of. And we are already instituted a hotline, which all our facilities are having to just report directly to us when they are running short of the PPE. But it's important also to mention that the PPE has got different spaces and scenarios where it should be used. It should not be used because other people demand, for a very minor circumstances, they demand high level of PPE available. But the guidelines have been actually circulated to all the departments and all our facilities. The important aspect, again, the Premier has indicated that since tomorrow we are going to be, in the next 3 days, having SASSA payouts, particularly for the elderly. We have already vaccinated all the people who work in our op center, and also all our community healthcare workers who have been trained as tracers. Tomorrow we're going to also roll out vaccination for the elderly for flu, vaccination for flu, because it's important that we vaccinate those. We reported that we are going to vaccinate healthcare workers, elderly women, those who've got TB and HIV comorbidities, and the pregnant women, which is something that we do. And this is a vaccine for flu, not for COVID-19, but only for flu. The tracing improvement has happened. I think we are slightly fine-tuning and making sure that our tracing is capability is improved, and as the technology now to geolocate everyone who's a contact and also to see the movement and where they've touched. Currently, we have already traced over 1,400 contacts out of 1,700, which makes that we are almost 82% in completing all those known contacts, because that's the most important aspect that we need to emphasize, that we are tracing the known contacts, and that will help us a great deal. And this is something that we normally do in the space of containment, which the lockdown is one important aspect of containment phase. And we are rolling out testing sites throughout the province, which the testing will be done in a focused manner, in a systemic manner, and also in a manner that will be much effective and cost effective for our country and our province. The testing sites will be starting them where there's a high density of contacts so that we are able to improve that aspect. We already have trained 437 community healthcare workers who are going to be part of the tracing teams. We are continuously training them as we go on because we want to be, all our community healthcare workers should have been trained by the time the end of this week, so that 9,000 or so of them should be on the ground doing the tracing. And importantly, with them that are going to do the tracing, they're going to continuously do the education and also make sure that they're able to be part of the we also like to welcome the donations and the support that have been announced, notably the donation and announcement that have been put across by the Motsepe family. We are looking forward with working with them to make sure that they are able to assist us in increasing the capacity. But we also welcome the donations from different individuals who have already established a team, and we're calling on organizations and individuals who have that capacity to donate and support our fight against COVID. We have an email address that we've put across, which is covid19.donation@gauteng.gov.za. So everyone who's willing to, the one that we're talking about is in relation to equipment that will require for health. So like we know that we are running short, we have got a great demand for the PPEs, so people who can be able to give us that freely, we can be able to accept that, and we welcome those donations. We also want to welcome and appreciate the help of our academics from all our universities in the province, the VETS, UJ, UP, GCRO, who are helping us to just make sure that we fine-tune our tracing method in terms of technology and also in terms of modeling. And the modeling now has gone to a point where we can be even know in terms of the worst case scenario how many beds we might be actually needing for hospitalization in many respects. The other one is that we've announced the e-recruitment process where we are recruiting healthcare workers. We need to be specific here that we have not excluded anyone, environment health practitioners, occupational therapy, all healthcare workers who are available, who want contracts, who want employment. They can get hold of the e-recruitment website, which we have launched, and it's functional now, and people can be able to process their applications in that regard. The website that we have it's health jobs at www.healthjobs.co.za. It just helps to fast track the applications and people not to move around to come and want to bring their CVs. Lastly is the issue of the volunteers. Volunteers, it's going to depend on the phases that we're in. Like now we're doing containment, we're doing tracing. So we would want the volunteers that could be part of the tracers. We'll also in our social media platforms will put across the get to a particular point in time where the volunteers will be required in facilities, will be required in hospitals in terms of treatment and management of patients. So by and large, this is what we have been doing, and we are quite certain that the response sufficient, but it's enough that we can be able to deal with what we have, and we are quite confident we will be in the space to do that. And with that, I will hand over to MEC.
We are number last.
Thank you so much, Honorable Premier and colleagues. The Gauteng Provincial Government has identified payments of social grants as a major risk that needs to be managed. Within that context, myself and MEC Maide were given the task to liaise with the South African Social Security Agency as well as the South African Post Office, because the payments of social grants is a national competency. So we just wanted to work with them closely and ensure that all people that are receiving grants, they receive them in an environment that is conducive and also that complies with the health regulations that have been imposed. There are two specific constituencies that we are working around them. The first constituency is the old age. People that are receiving their old age grant. There are 648,495 people that are receiving old age grants in Gauteng. So that's the first group that we wanted to work around, 648,495. The second group are people that are receiving the disability grant. The total number of people that are receiving disability grant is 120,163. That's 120,163. If you combine the two beneficiaries only, the total number is 768,658. That's 768,658. These are the beneficiaries that are going to receive social grants from tomorrow until Tuesday. That is the 30th and the 31st. So we are working very hard, therefore, to put systems to welcome, accommodate, ensure they receive the grants in a manner that will assist us to deal with all matters that have been identified. So how are we going to deal with this matter? There are 300 post offices in Gauteng. Majority of the people that are going to receive their grants, that is 86,507, are going to that is 86,507. These are the people that are going to receive their social grants from 300 post offices. All the relevant systems that we want them to have. And thus far, they've confirmed the following: that they will make available 5,000 liters of hand sanitizers for the elderly and the beneficiary, which simply means that when they arrive there, they will then get hand sanitizers so that they can be in a position to receive their grants. The office staff that is going to be used, they've ordered 30,000 pairs of hand gloves so that all the office staff that are going to execute this mandate, they can be in a position to execute this mandate in a safe environment, including 300 marks. So of all the beneficiaries that we've identified, that is 768,658, only over 700,000 will receive their grants directly through their bank accounts or through the agencies. Agencies, you are meaning your ShopRite checkers, your Game, your Pick and Pay, and other things. So you can see from the figures that we've released that majority of people are receiving their social grant directly rather than queuing. Those that will queue to receive in cash, that is those that wants to touch it and have cash in their pockets, they across Gauteng. There are only 9, what you used to say is community halls, only 9 pay points that are going to accommodate people that want to receive their money in cash. So from the program itself, it's quite clear that there might be limitations there in terms of social distancing, because some of the areas where people are going to receive, especially the post office, we might have more than 100 people at the same time. So what the post office has done now is that they're going to group people according to, they're going to group them in hundreds, which simply means the first 100, the second 100, the third 100, and also observe social distancing and ensure that the elderly are sanitized. The most important element is that elderly people are the ones that are at risk. So if you check worldwide, this is the group that need to be protected as much as possible. And that's the reason why we've separated them, so that they can be protected. And we welcome because it's only those that are going to be exposed that we want to provide the flu vaccine. But the process of providing the vaccine extends to everyone, especially those that are elderly, so that they can get that relevant support. So that's the information that we want to put in terms of social grants. We just want to give an update in terms of homeless people, because in the last 48 hours, this is the group that indeed came out in large numbers. We knew there were homeless people, but we didn't know there's so many. And the numbers have been overwhelming. The problematic areas are only 2 in Gauteng. The major risk is the Caledonian Stadium in Tshwane. That's the major risk. We've put up emergency tents, 20 emergency tents, and we've converted that area now to be the screening center rather than accommodate people, to screen them for diseases, their needs, whether they've missed the medication that they need to take, so that we've got records with the Department of Health, so that that medication can be given. Because if they lapse as well, we'll have a serious disaster. So the Caledonian has been a major risk. Because of that, we met urgently with the Tshwane disaster team, and we are now opening the Tshwane Event Center. So now the Tshwane Event Center, we are putting up tents there to move every person that is homeless around Tshwane to that particular area. And then when it's full, we've made available almost 122 unused schools in Gauteng. Those are the ones that are unused, to be a backup if the numbers increases. That's one area, as I say, that still remain a risk. We have just received information now, MEC, what's the name of the place that you've just given us, MEC? Rivali. We've just received information now that in Rivali, the numbers has increased and it has affected the food allocations that we normally give. So we just need to increase that aspect. So people to assist there. But generally, the issue of the homeless is still an area that needs immediate attention, and for us to provide the relevant support that is needed. But we are quite impressed that we have managed to remove them. And this was voluntarily. Some, yes, 20% or so might have been asked by the police, but 80% people said that we want to go to the centers. And we want to take this opportunity to extend the support beyond the coronavirus. We are screening them for diseases. We also want to give them soft skills. We also want to check what are the things that we can do to reconnect them with their families or their communities. And all those things, we really believe it will assist us to minimize the number, because the numbers are huge. In Gauteng alone, in Johannesburg alone, in terms of the homeless numbers, we are talking about 15,000 people, 15,000 odd. In Tshwane is 10,000 odd, and in Ekurhuleni is 8,000 odd, and in Western and Sidibeng is 4,000 each. So you can see we are talking around almost 50,000 people. This is a huge community. It can't be left unattended. So we want to take this opportunity of the 21 days or so that are remaining to also provide additional support to this community. Thanks so much, Honorable Premier.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to our friends at home. We know those that are in lockdown, they are seeing us on their screens. Hard luck to them. As the Gauteng Provincial Government, for the past 2 days since we started lockdown, there has been quite a lot of challenges that we picked up, and we appreciate all the information we got from members of the community, those that were sharing with us that there's no compliance in relation to social distance, especially at the malls, and those that continue to defy and want to open their taverns and open their shebeens. We've got news for them, is that as the Gauteng Provincial Government, we then took a decision that will recall all our patrollers, community patrollers, that's how we name them, and our CPFs and all the safety ambassadors. We then redeployed them into the malls so that then they help with the management of the queues and ensure that there's social distance between our people. There is no one that is standing behind the other and not giving enough space. I must say we appreciate those that were able to cooperate, but as usual, some of our people, they believe if they open a gap between them, abantu bayabafohla. That's when we then introduce what Premier was mentioning, that we use even the trolleys. They are able to assist that we keep a distance between the between people. We also used other means to ensure, like marking on the floor, to ensure that people stand at 1 meter apart from each other. I must say it has worked well. Although it started late yesterday, but today, since morning, there's been a lot of cooperation, and those that were able to go to malls, maybe they'll be able to share with us. We still are left with few teething problems here and there, but we believe that will be taken care of as we get used to the system and getting more and more of our patrollers and our safety ambassadors to be able to participate in all those processes. We thank you very much. Continue sharing with us more information where you discover that there is still a breach in relation to the social distance of our people. We are ready for the pension pay points for tomorrow and the coming days, as mentioned by MEC Sufi. We believe that let's continue protecting our elderly, the disabled, and the children. I will now hand over to our Provincial Commissioner, Lieutenant General Mawela, to speak specifically on those matters as a Mapoisa. He is the Poisa. Thank you very much. I'll pass the mic over to him. He's wearing a glove.
Thank you, Premier, and thank you, MECs. All law enforcement agencies in the province are ready to enforce the regulations. We are currently complemented by national competencies. National office have deployed some of functional members who can come and assist in the province. And we are further supported by the members of the South African National Defence Force. And we are ready to assert and react the authority of the state, whereby we are going to apply zero tolerance to those who are disregarding the regulations. We have also observed those people who continue to trade in intoxicating liquor, those who still continue to participate in social gatherings, street bashes, chisanyamas. We want to call upon them to say, please let them respect and recognize the regulation and abide with those. In this province, we have identified 43 major and secondary roads whereby we feel that there is a high volume of movement in those roads. And out of that, we have prioritized 11. That is national roads and some provincial roads, leading out of the province to the neighboring provinces. On those roads, we are going to employ 24/7 total lockdown. Those will be the multidisciplinary integrated roadblocks, and obviously supported by members of the South African National Defence Force. And on these other roads, the provincial roads and municipal roads leading to some of the hotspots areas which we have identified, will employ what we call it the soft lock, the VCPs, to ensure that those who are prohibited to move around in the province, they are being stopped and sent back where they come from. To others, they may think that some of the measures which we are employing, we are too extreme. But to us, it's a matter of life and death. We can't take anything for chance. So we call upon our communities to can work with us and understand that one slight mistake, it may cause the life of many people in our province. So we will also be supporting policing and safeguarding the pay points tomorrow, supporting exactly what the MEC did too. Because we know that there will be a high movement of cash in the province, whereby the cash vans will be taking monies to those points. We need to be alive and ready to can safeguard those movements. We further appreciate the cooperation we are receiving thus far and the information which our for responding to those kind of information which we are continuously receiving from our communities. Lastly, those who have decided to disregard the regulation. To date, we have put behind bars 148. And then we have also issued the warning to 25 people who decided not to obey the regulations. And we will continue to stamp the authority of the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, General. Thank you very much, Premier and MECs. Colleagues will just take questions to those who might actually have by show of hands. Fine. Okay. You'll then be number one, and you are the only one. Okay, that's very good. At least two are clear. You can shoot put.
Good day, colleagues on the panel. This is Market Amhlawe from the SABC. Lieutenant General, just one specific question here. Can you just tell us, okay, on what charges are these people that you've arrested them? What charges really are they facing? And also to the Premier of Gauteng, we were in Alexandra and we movement settlements in the streets of Alexandra. And I just want to really find out, what are you saying about those that are living in squatter camps or informal settlements where we know that the congestion is still an issue? And from what we understand is that they are struggling to actually observe this lockdown simply because they cannot really stay in their houses. Once they get up, they would then want to get out of their houses and get some fresh air. And this is what they are saying on the ground. So what are you saying about them, more especially after the concerns that we have been hearing throughout the years of trying to sort of stop the mushrooming of sheikhs or even illegal buildings there? Thanks.
I am quite surprised. We often get a lot of questions from members of the media. The General will deal with the issue of the charges, what the different charges those arrested are facing. But let me just say that I think one of the important things that we have been saying the police must act on is also around fake news, so on the one hand is fake news, but on the other is those who broadcast on social media flagrant disregard of the regulations. For example, the police had to arrest a gentleman who broadcast on social media that they were gathered somewhere and the coronavirus is not there, and was literally playing with lives of people. But this gentleman and the group were enjoying themselves, sending these videos. The police tracked down that fellow and put the fellow behind bars. And I think it's a very, very serious issue. People who circulate information and play around this matter of COVID-19, which is deadly, which has poses a huge risk to millions of our people in our province and in our country. The law enforcers are now taking this very, very seriously, tracking people down. I want to also say on law enforcement, I myself was not happy on the first day. I gave a report. I reported to the MEC, I reported to the Provincial Commissioner, and I also raised the matter with the National Minister of Police. Yesterday when I drove around, and you are media people, when I drove around to the few roadblocks, and in fact you will see the police are going to ramp up this. Because if one person drives around and then they see that there are no police, the army is not there, you can easily move from one township to the next, and then the next thing you call your friends, you will tell your friends that no, we can move to that place and that place. This driving around the province is what we must stop. So the reason the police have now identified 11 national and provincial roads that are major, 43 secondary roads in Gauteng, is that we want a lockdown. Basically, I've said to them that I want to feel it, even as the Premier, that when I travel from one part, even as we have to do our work ourselves, we want to see the roadblocks. Because until we get to that point, the lockdown will be undermined. So the Provincial Commissioner is here, has put in place all the measures now. They've identified this 43 roads plus the national roads where we're going to see increased police visibility and so on. And that is important because once a few people think that you can easily move around, and they will not stay at home. The people who understandably will not stay at home are those who have an essential service to perform. The point about the people who live in high density areas, every press conference we have heard since the declaration of the national disaster, I've explained as the Premier our province vulnerability. And one of those areas of vulnerability is just population density. And I've also Africans come, live and work in Gauteng. Beyond the population density, I've explained that we also have human settlements where a large number of our people live side by side. They are densely populated settlements, but they are also densely populated households. And I've made this point that this constitutes a great risk. It's not going to be easy to do social distancing in communities where people live, even in the townships. It's not just in the informal settlements. In the townships, there are people have built extra back rooms to support their own incomes. So you would find even in a formal township, the total number of people who live in there the number is huge. That poses a risk. So what do you do as a leadership? All the message we are taking to our people is that it is in your own interest, even under these difficult circumstances. Let's all do something. Let's observe all the measures we can. Social distancing would not be easy. I know it. It would not be easy in Alexandra is one of those densely populated areas. It will not be easy, but we can't send a message to the people of Alexandra that the lockdown does not include you. That's a wrong message. It's very risky. We must say to the people of Alexandra, even under the circumstances that you face, let's all of us do something. And yesterday, Alexandra yesterday is one of those townships where a lot of efforts were put into sorting out the queues. Of the patrollers was in Alexandra. We gave them protective clothing. Those patrollers, they went at the malls to help ease the queues and create social distance. So our message is, even in densely populated areas, let's all of us do something about this situation. Coronavirus doesn't look as to where you live, what your income is. It is a very deadly virus, and we have to do everything to alert our people, to inform our people, and say to them, let's all participate in an effort the exposure and the level of the extent of infection. And so it is for that reason, areas like Alexandra would be what we call high vulnerability areas. So we have used technology, we have used researchers to map the various areas in Gauteng province. That in those areas we have multiple strategies in place already. So once we have, for example, a contact, once the Department of Health says to us that there are so many people who came into contact with someone who's positive, we are also monitoring where these areas are. And the high density areas are top of our risk areas. So the response teams, once we have somebody in a high density area, we want to make sure we find that contact as of yesterday to minimize the number of people that the contact would come into contact with who may be infected. So if you want to understand our comprehensive strategies, that the informal settlements or townships that are high density areas are on our map, in our geo mapping. So we say here, let's make sure in these areas that firstly there are no people who have tested positive who come face to face with a large number of people. But once we picked up that there's a contact there, we deploy more resources there in those areas because we know what the risk would be. Once there are more people in those areas, there's no self-isolation. One of the things we're doing is the facilities for quarantine and isolation. Those facilities that a middle-class family may be easy to have self-isolation, but a working-class family would not have that. So some of the capacity we are putting, extra capacity we are putting in places, once we find a contact in an area of high vulnerability or high risk, we want to act as quickly as possible with regard to those. And we are doing that now. We are using all remote sensing technology to also be able to ensure that we protect these areas. But I want to say the people of Alexandra can do a lot. They've done a lot under difficult conditions to take measures. They too can play a role to ensure that these areas are not, people don't just go about and say, no, there's nothing we can do in our area because we are too many. There is always something that each and every one of us can do. And if you think you have come into contact with someone who has tested positive, it's always better to contact our health officials. We are increasing the number of testing sites even in those areas as part of our proactive measures. So there is something that can be done. We cannot wait to depopulate those areas before we take measures today. We can't say, no, we must first people. Coronavirus is developing very, very fast. We've got to there has to be interventions with immediate effect. And a lot of our messaging is dependent on our own people. I drove through Tembisa yesterday. Tembisa. There were very, very few people walking on the roads. I drove through Soweto yesterday. Outside those going to the shops, there were much fewer people walking on the roads. And my colleagues who went to other areas are saying the same. That this message that says people must stay at home, this message is getting to more and more people. But there are those who may defy, and where there are difficulties like as a result of densities of people, where there are those difficulties, we say that we will have to find extraordinary means. We in South Africa, we in Africa, have to deal with the challenge of coronavirus under the conditions that we find ourselves in. We can't create conditions of Europe. We can't create conditions of China. We must enforce the lockdown under the conditions that is why when people have to do shopping, we can't close down the shops when they have no food. We go to the shops and say, how do we make sure that there are fewer people, those that are there, there's distance between them, and the shops comply with sanitation and all other measures. So from where I sit, we will get to a point where the lockdown is 100% effective, but it needs a firm hand. You know, I went to an area where the old ladies who were on the queue to go and buy food were saying, for the first time we are able to sleep. And they said, I must pass this message to Minister Bekikele, that now they can sleep because the shebins that used to make noise for them are closed. They go to sleep. Bit by bit, part by part. But there is no escape from it. And I also want to say there are those who left Gauteng when we said they shouldn't leave. They don't know what is waiting for them. They don't know what is waiting for them. It is not going to be as easy as when they left. We're going to put in place measures to ensure that we check people, we test, we screen people, because we advised that people need to avoid resorting to behavior that may put others at great risk. Let me also say, there are also those that may not be in the province. Once the tests confirm who may have been tested but they are away, once our health team confirms that these people have tested positive, we going with the police to find them wherever they are. So that case of someone who was in Limpopo is a function of collaboration. So because there's this lag behind. If a contact has tested positive and we can't find them where they are, we will find them in South Africa somewhere. The state is collaborating. We are collaborating with our provinces, our neighboring provinces, because to find those who pose a risk of spreading the infections is our collective national responsibility. We can't say they are no longer in Gauteng, they are not our burden. So we will find, we are now at 82% of all the contacts. We are at 82% success rates of finding them. So we are left with 18%. And we are improving through technology. We are improving every day to find this contact. And finding them means finding them wherever they are. You might be in Limpopo, but we will find you. You might have decided to go to KwaZulu-Natal or Eastern Cape, but we will find you. We are collaborating as the whole system of government, because wherever you are posing a risk. And there are people who also know, who have tested positive, who are engaging in more riskier behavior when they do that. So this is not a joke. It is a very serious matter. One or two areas, there are still young people who organize themselves and go to public spaces that have been declared shut down and think that they can be rowdy. There's one or two cases where they were rowdy with the police, including our Metro Police. They must know that it will not work. About protecting our people, protecting our nation. And I also want to say that the provincial government is at work. You would see we are at work every evening. We have a Teams meeting, that's a teleconference. The MECs and myself, every evening, we do a Teams meeting from wherever people are to receive reports, to track progress, to understand which area in Gauteng is giving us a headache and what can we do in that area to increase enforcement, the visibility of the law enforcers. But in some instances, we need the local leadership of those areas, because in South Africa, we are policing a democracy here. It must be understood that we still remain a democracy. We must use a combination of measures. Yes, the law enforcement agencies must be merciless, but we want to mobilize society. The reason the churches have responded so overwhelmingly today, no, we didn't have to go around shutting down the churches today. We need that type of leadership of society. The members of parliament who are in our province, when there is a problem in an area where people are violating the law, they are not observing the law, as a member of parliament, go out there with your tag, of being a member of parliament. Go there and help ensure that they shut down those who are not shutting down. And let's help every sector. When we have people who need help, let's make because this councillor organized a protest around electricity-related issues. The councillor was arrested by the police. I spoke to the mayor yesterday that it must be clear. If there's anybody who thinks you will organize a community protest and then the police will not act, and we don't want to be going up and down to be addressing mass meetings. We are not allowed ourselves. But if we go to an area where there is a long queue of people who are buying foodstuff, basic supplies, the reason we will go there is to go and resolve the problem. So where will we be tomorrow? We will be at these pension pay points as the Gauteng Provincial Government. Our biggest operation over the next 2 days is to make sure that the social grants are paid in as smooth where there will be social distancing. So we will to help resolve the problem. But you understand, even with us, we try as we are doing this basic work to avoid coming into contact with large numbers of people. But we must go. When leadership is required, we must be able to go there and ensure we prevent or mitigate the risk of too many people gathering to do some basic thing or the other. So from where we are, I think we're doing everything we have to do. If you ask me, I'm worried about the issue of the taxis. I hope the taxi associations and our National Minister of Transport will have a solution. If we wake up tomorrow morning and there's no taxi that's running, the big risk would be on our essential services workers. We need to get our essential services workers to areas where we need them at post, including the pension, the collection of the pension payouts and the grants. If there's no public transport tomorrow, it will create big problems for us. At least in Gauteng, we know we are dealing with 86,000 of those who have to physically go to the post office and collect their grants, or to a hall where the post office is coming to give out the grants. The rest are going to be getting their money in their accounts. It minimizes the risk, but we are going to be paying attention to that. So the people of Gauteng, stay put. Let's all do our best to protect ourselves. It is not the government. It is the people as a whole that wants to ensure we protect ourselves. The government is an agent of the people. And the government
okay. You've got a follow-up? Okay. Let's just just give one general and then we'll then do the follow-up. All right.
The charges pressed against those who were arrested mostly are the people who were arrested for gathering, disregarding the regulation about gathering. You find that the convener brought together more than 50 people. And then we have dealt with the whereby the themselves in their residence, and then they were just doing the jaywalking, roaming around the street. They were not even going for shopping to buy the essentials and so forth. So you could see that these are the people who are saluting us with the middle finger. And we have arrested a lot of people who are still dealing with intoxicating liquor. They were trading behind the scene, thinking that the concerned good citizens of this province, they won't see them and they won't report to us. So we have arrested those ones. Some of them, we have found them selling liquor to their customers, and we have arrested them and the customers for procuring liquor. And some of the businesses which are not allowed to operating, some hawking, and then we have dealt with them. And we've also arrested the taxi operators who were operating outside the operating hours. They were just continuing with their normal duties, picking up passengers and then moving around. Also disregarding the threshold given to say that they shouldn't overload. So those are some of the arrests we have effected. And we like to thank our good citizens once more for working with us and for bringing these things to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General. Let's just have the one follow-up, and then I think that will be it.
Ngabula Madlala from ENCA. Just quick question to MEC Lesufi. You spoke about 122 unused schools. Will you please clarify, is it abandoned schools, or and then also we'd like to know when are the homeless people going to be moved? And also to the Commissioner, I'd like to know, you said the police will be assisting with the movement of cash, security of the movement of cash. Where are our highest risk pay points?
Obviously, the high movement of cash, it will be in the shopping centers, the post office, and the pension pay points. Currently, most of the shops are closed. So the people who are making money are those who are selling food. Money will be delivered to the pay points, to the post offices. So we regard those areas as the high-risk areas whereby we need to intensify our operations. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. Yes, the 122 schools are unused, not abandoned. They are unused, and they're spread across the entire province, because there are some areas where the numbers of learners will go down, so we'll merge a school, and out of the merger, another school will be unused, but we give it over to the Department of Infrastructure, and they can reutilize it either as offices or NGO projects or other things. But these are mainly unused schools that we are utilizing. They are coming as a backup. I think we need to make other people understand that under the circumstances that we are in, any state property can be utilized. And the reason we want to emphasize this point, because that if you use their schools, they'll go to court. And we really believe those people are selfish. They don't consider the needs of other people. It does not mean people that are homeless, they don't have rights or cannot be protected, or they are less important than themselves. They are staying in their own houses, enjoying the comfort of their own houses. If there are people that we believe they can bring a risk to this population, we need to protect that. And we'll use whatever state property that is available. And those that believe they can take court action, we say bring it on. We really believe that it's something that we don't need. We need to protect everyone and ensure that everyone is given the necessary support that they need. So the homeless will move. We are starting now with the NGOs and facilities that are owned by local government. If the numbers become too much, as they are now, then that's when we are going to move to the school. So currently, our officials, together with the officials of the Department of Infrastructure, are preparing those unused schools so that they can be conducive to accommodate people. Just ensure that we can put the mattresses, the sanitation is working, there is electricity, and people can also have to use the showers if we have to put temporary showers in those facilities. But there are 122 in total, and we really believe they will assist us to manage the task that we need to attend to. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Premier, Mrs. and General, and thank you very much, colleagues, for coming. That's the end of it.